it doesn't show itself the way it should. It's not like this big sore thumb that sticks out. You know what I mean? The lie is hidden within the truth, and so sometimes people don't see exactly what it is that you're seeing. You know, I feel like I've gotten to a place in my walk right now where I can't sit down with someone and explain in any short period of time, you know, the depth of things that God has been good enough to show me, because it's just it's this building process that I've gone through now for a year and a half, 2 years, and you know, you just can't lay that out for someone in a short period of time, and so you know, it makes it difficult sometimes to point out some of the deceptions, because so many of this deception builds upon something else, or the understanding of it builds upon some other understanding that you came to. And it's the truth element in the deception that makes it difficult to be able to expose the deception as quickly or as easily as you might like to. That's the way I find it, if I can even explain that well.
It's really hard, because you have to literally sit down with someone and have a captive audience with them and have them have an open mind and have them kind of throw away an awful lot of what they perceive to be real and just sit there for like 6 hours and lecture to them and have them take it in and digest it in order to get to all of it. So I think, like, you know, I told you what I was planning on doing the first show for the first podcast for the new show. I was going to do it on something, and I feel like I need to rebuild everything, and I'm going to try to start doing things where just kind of taking it apart piece by piece, step one, and go as if I was going to sit down and talk to someone and say, well, here's the first thing you need to know. Here's the next thing you need to know. Here's the next thing. And at the same time, like we were talking about a couple weeks ago, start building upon like the research that I put into this stuff, writing little articles and putting them on an alternate site so that we've got this stuff all laid out. And anybody that wants to help with this, you know, just let me know. But just really laying it out so people can kind of follow and digest it in small bits, because I think that's the only way to really attack this. The only way to really, you know, stick the sword in is you got to pull back a lot of layers of shielding in order to really, you know, poke and cause some damage. And I don't know. It's amazing how things seem so simple, and they never really are. No matter how cut and dry things appear to be, they never are what they seem.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Very true.
Good.
Well, you know, when I first started getting Reiki work done on me, you know, and I thought that was just the grandest thing in the world. You know, I never knew anything about this before, and my eyesight started healing, and, you know, different things started healing, and I had more energy than I ever had, and it's a lie, and it's deception, because the minute that I stopped and got out of this, my eyes are just back as bad as they ever were. It's not a forever healing from the demons. It's just a temporary fix. It's a Band-Aid to get you to believe that the person there that's doing the Reiki, you know, is sometimes God or something, and that's typically what happens. Say, oh, thank you for healing me. And I always said, and this is what I always said, really, I said, don't thank me, thank God. Because I really, really thought that I was somewhere, somehow, doing God's work. You know, I was terribly deceived. And there's a lot of people out there doing this.
Well, you could see where everybody would think that. I mean, because everybody would know on some level it wasn't you that did it, you know. And I think that that's where a lot of the stuff that we run into with the people that had their conscience seared, as that passage talks about, is because they've had it seared with the knowledge of having seen these things, you know, happen, and so you can't really tell them, and they'll fight you to the bitter end that it is the way that they believe, when it really comes down to the fact that they believe what was added on to it. You know, they have something that they can hold on to, the evidence of something happening, and then they have an addition to that, and the two are not the same thing, you know, and And so I think that that's where a lot of, you could really break that down. I think if somebody was willing to listen, you could show them that, especially when they're introduced with the concept, explained to them in a way that they might be able to understand and see. I think that would all ring a little bit more true, that these are extra-dimensional entities, that their stories don't always, add up. And if you really started giving them some of the qualities and of demons, then it would ring true to a lot of people. They'd be like, hey, you know what? Even if they were into a lot of this stuff, if they knew what the demons kind of things that they would do and tricks that they would play, let's say, all of a sudden that would kind of hit you like a punch in the stomach, like, you know?
Exactly. And, something else I want to say is this. I never felt any fear. I never felt anything but love from all the beings that I ever had anything to do with. The only time I had any weird feelings is whenever I went to a psychic and my dad had come through, and I was sitting in the chair, and the psychic said, I wonder why he did that. And I said, what? And excuse this for saying this, but this is what was said. And he said, I've never seen that happen. And I said, what? And this was a psychic here in Austin. And he said, your dad just come over there and pinched you on your nipple. And I said, what? Well, I never went back to that guy, and I had a really strange feeling. And then the other time, I felt something strange with the lady when she was talking to my grandmother. And that's the only times I ever felt anything. When I was talking to the beings, and they were in my house, and my roommate's dog was going crazy and scared to death, and, my roommate was hearing noises, and, supposedly I was being taken out of my room, physically out of my room at night while I sleep. And while I slept. And she never had the nerve to go upstairs to see if I was gone. But there was a lot of times I woke up and I knew that I hadn't been in the bed all night. And I think that all those implants and stuff that the demons put in me they do that.
Then let me ask you this. When you say that, I find that it was when the people that were very, very into the occult and really focused on it and learning more and doing things, that that's when it kind of would cross over from sleep paralysis to more abductions, and that's when the stories started becoming a lot more real. And there was this, and at least from the recent study that I've just done with I say study, it was just reading people's experiences, but it did seem a lot like what you said, not there, you knew you weren't there at night. I think, let me ask. Go ahead.
I said, you've heard that before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's when a lot of the abductions would start. And the more they would do, the more frequent the abductions were. And in my looking at it, what I could see is it seems like because of the different rituals and the opening of doors, these beings really, they can't contain themselves. They really want to be able to torture people. And so that gave them the authority to do so. So I think that's why you had a lot of this. It's still veiled with the masks. A lot of times I would say, that's when they would wear their alien deception to be another, because it really gives them an opportunity to be able to do it again, because then they can sell you a whole bag about how, you're helping them. Because a lot of times people that were actually having the alien abductions thing would be having these awful experiences where they're being tortured just by these evil things. And then when they would call them out and be like, hey, what are you doing? They would almost stop and say, hey, don't you want to help us? You're doing something very, very important and you're helping. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And then they think they're special, so then they just let them torture them all the more. But I guess what my question is, did you have a lot more of those, any kind of things like that? And if so, did you get an impression that they were mean and evil, even though you were kind of at that point thinking that they were good?
Well, I have to be honest now. I will not lie about anything. That's one of my things that I am. I will not lie. Absolutely will not. I never felt anything bad. Even when I knew, I was allowed to go onto the ship twice. I wasn't allowed. I actually went on the ship on my own, uninvited, They didn't have any notice I was coming. I just went. I left my body and I went on the ship. I found my way to the wormhole and went there. And I was totally awake when I did this. And the other time I guess I'd been asking or something. I don't remember that, but supposedly I'd been asking. And I was allowed to go on the ship and was conscious for a little while. Now, this is my astral. This is my other body, or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't my physical body, I don't think. I think it was just, but I was totally aware, and I could totally see, and I could totally hear. And I had all my senses. And I still did not feel anything bad or negative. I had no kind of, I know I've seen stuff on TV where people have been abducted and horrible things have happened to them. I've never experienced any of that. That's one of the questions that I have.
Well, I'll say that was only a part of the experience. A lot of the people that would have abduction experiences did have just what I would say just a big deceptive play going on where they would have none of the bad but all the good. You know, I think it, and kind of like the more solidifying somebody's particular viewpoint about it, because it, you know, at the end of the day, something like that would make you a stronger believer in their, a kind of an evangelist of sorts. You know, they were. I think that's kind of a way of getting somebody more in on it, where it's different. It seemed to be different in every case, but yeah. But go ahead.
That kind of answers my question, because, you know, I've always wondered about that, why I didn't have any horrible feelings or wake up, you know, and know that something really bad happened. You know, I woke up and there would be like a mark on my arm, and I even took pictures of it where it had little dots, where it looked like a nice blade of some kind or something. And, you know, I don't know, at one time I had like 12 implants inside me. I had all this different stuff. I had something on my head that felt like all the time. There was some communication device. I had all kinds of stuff. sounds crazy, but I'm telling you the truth.
And you know what, the intriguing part of when we get really down on this is what I was doing, kind of how me and Frank sort of started hooking up a lot of different research projects and stuff, is because of this question that now arises with what you're talking about, implants and a lot of different things happening there. The further you go in on it, it seems the further in you go, there seems to be another connection with something very physical, in addition to it crossing over to being very astral and very demonic. And I think that there is something to be said for a possibility of this, that I've always looked at it as, in some way, I could be way off base here, I'm just saying it, and I've said it before, that I think that the kings of the world, like they have in the past, and I think maybe that manifests in this new day and age, is like presidents and military people have made some kind of deal, whether they knew or not. Maybe they themselves were deceived that these were aliens from another planet, and they did a deal with technology and stuff from this kind of things. And I think that they masquerade on a level with them, but I think that it's all still connected very tightly to the same principles of blood and authority over the people and torture, but it's kind of intermixed with this I don't know, this real aspect of things. I don't know, like actual technology and real flesh and blood things. But again, you know, you can't be separated from, like you were saying, the further, if you go to if you get a chance to read through the experiences at Alien Abduction Crisis Centers of America, AACCOA.org, there's a lot of people that have experiences exactly, and I didn't read these in the podcast, but exactly like what you're talking about. They were having the exact same story as you and everything else, and then they would get to that level. And what actually woke a lot of these people up is that the abduction experiences would increase to such a level that they saw the correlation between the life that they were deeply involved in and the increase in frequency of the dealing in a very physical way with these entities that used to only deal with them in more of a light, purely astral way. So, very interesting.
I know when I used to go to sleep that it was a physical thing. The minute I would lay down to go to sleep, I would feel something touching my bed. I mean, I'd lay down and I was fixing to go